The moon. In ancient times, before most stories and kingdoms, there was a land where the night was always as dark as if a black cloth had been spread out. No moon and no stars illuminated the darkness. And so, 4 brothers set out from this land to explore the world. They always marched during the day, knowing that traveling at night without any light would be too dangerous. The oldest of the brothers found them a resting place under the trees as he saw the sun slowly disappearing behind the mountains. Once they had made themselves comfortable, they watched as the sun gave its final rays and then set. But to their surprise, it did not become completely dark. The youngest of them saw it first. Then he called out his brothers. "Look, there! The shining spear above the tree!" And then the others saw it too. Above an old oak tree hung a large sphere that emitted a soft light. Thanks to the sphere, they could see and distinguish everything, even though the light was not as radiant as the sun. The brothers were amazed and asked a wondering traveler what this light was. "Well, that's our moon," he answered. "Our governor bought it for 3 coins and hung it on the tallest tree here. He says he has to pour oil on it every day, and in return we give him a coin each week." The brothers were impressed, and the cleverest of them said, "We could also make good use of this lamp. We have a big oak tree at home where we could hang the moon. What a joy it would be if we no longer had to stumble around in the dark at night." Finally, the most cunning of the brothers spoke up. "You know what? Let's get a wagon and horses and take the moon with us. They can buy another one here." The bravest of the brothers agreed and said, "Yes, indeed. I can climb up and bring it down for us." In no time, everything was prepared, and the brothers began their plan. The bravest brother climbed up the tree and placed a rope around the moon, skillfully tying it with firm knots. The other brothers slowly lowered the moon onto the wagon, and once it was loaded, they covered it with a dark cloth so that no one would notice their theft. Then, with great spirits, they set off on their way back home. This journey had been worthwhile, they all agreed. Once they arrived home, before the sun had set, they together secured the moon on the tallest tree they could find. The clever one noticed that the moon hadn't needed any oil exchange. It shone all by itself. So he said, "Let's keep it for ourselves. We'll do it just like the old governor. Everyone should pay us a coin per week. That way, we'll be rich and won't need to toil anymore." And as the sun finally set, and everyone expected the dark night, the inhabitants of the land were astonished to see the moon shining in gentle light. The dwarves crawled out of their rock caves, and the gnomes danced in the moonlight, filled with joy. They told everyone about the moon and explained that they filled it with oil and replaced the wick daily. Soon, no one wanted to lose the moon's light, and so every resident paid a coin per week to the brothers. The 4 brothers quickly became wealthy people who lacked nothing. But with each passing year, they grew older and older. And after many years, they all became old and gray. When the eldest brother fell ill and could foresee his end, he decreed that upon his death, a quarter of the moon would be taken with him to the grave. Finally, the day came when the first brother passed away. A quarter of the moon was cut off and placed in the old man's grave. The light of the moon diminished as a result, but not significantly. Not long after, the second brother also died. He too insisted on having his share of the moon as a burial offering. And the third brother, upon his death, took a quarter of the moon with him to the afterlife. When the last of the brothers passed away, the people had no choice but to place the last quarter of the moon in his grave, as promised. And thus the old darkness once again spread throughout the land, and soon no one dared to venture outside at night. When the first brother died, a flicker of light returned to the realm of the dead. The light of the moon grew by a quarter with each brother until all the pieces were reunited. And in the places where darkness had always prevailed, suddenly there was light. At first it seemed calming, but it didn't take long for the light to disturb the peace of the dead. One by one, they awakened from their slumber. They stood up and resumed their former habits. Whether in the tavern or their homes, they danced and celebrated loudly, turning the world upside down. But with all the joys, the old quarrels resurfaced. And it didn't take long for everyone to start fighting and hitting each other with clubs. Chaos reigned in the world, somewhere between the living and the dead. Awakened by all the commotion, Peter, the guardian of the heavenly gate, rose. Startled, he looked down to earth and saw the turmoil that had arisen. Without hesitation, he took action and rode down on his horse to the world and even further down into the underworld. Upon arrival, he instructed the dead to finally lay back to rest. And no one dared to oppose the High Lord. He then took the moon with him to the heavens, high up, and hung it in the firmament, so that everyone could find their peace again. And since then, it hangs there, the moon. And also the kingdom was changed forever by it. Still further changes should come to the kingdom.
By the way, with a subscription, you won't miss any of our fairy tales. And feel free to write us in the comments which fairy tale is your favorite.